Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Beyond the Outer Realm, which is a spinoff of The Outer Realm, which airs Wednesday and Thursday evenings, 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern. So we are still broadcasting live on United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM from beautiful New Orleans. So today, I've been looking forward to this. We are going to sit with Luke Eastwood, and we're going to talk about his newest book called Scotia, the Lost Sister of Tutankhamun. And we were just chatting a little bit beforehand, and this was brought to my attention probably, I don't know, end of last year with a guest who is an archaeologist friend of mine in the UK. And I thought to myself, how did I not know this? Because I research a lot, especially historically, and I really love the Egyptian history. I've researched it for years. And just when you think you know pretty much, not everything, because we don't ever really know everything, but just when you thought you knew as much as you could know, you realize you really are still a student. I was just gobsmacked. I thought it was just phenomenal. So this is going to be very educational, I think, for all of us. And I see people are chiming in, and I know that I can see you guys in Roku. No, sorry, not Roku. Roku TV has no chat room. I could see you in Rumble. I can see you in X. We have 3 YouTube channels going and a couple of Facebook pages, and all archives will, of course, be on over 200 different locations. So you'll be able to go and find it if you're missing today's show. And somebody's dinging me like crazy at the moment, so I apologize. So hello, Soldier's Voice from Florida. Follow Luke's work, and I'm excited to be here today. Thank you for having him on. Oh, it's a pleasure. And in fact, I've been perusing his website, and there's a lot of other things that I would like to address. So that will be interesting. Oh, there we go. Thank you, guys. So without further ado, our special guest, Luke Eastwood. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, pleasure is all mine. Believe me.
So what you said, and you know what? I think we're all still students. I'm still learning things. I learned a lot of new stuff doing this book, and when you reach the point when you think you know everything, then you've kind of really shut yourself down, and you're not going to learn anything anymore if you decided that you know everything, are you? That's arrogant, I think. So I think there's room to learn, or even to realize that you were wrong about something and reconsider your opinion,
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. And I think that things change all the time. History changes. Like this, to me, was an incredible discovery. And it sounds like, from what you've written in your book, that some of it's really been hidden in plain sight, with as far as of who the princess was, who Scotia really was, and her life, and how the dots all connected. And then all of a sudden she just seems to disappear from history, so we all thought. And then you come out with all of this incredible information that's just sort of like, oh my gosh, this is she's not gone. We know where she finally is.
Well, in fairness, there's a lot of people who came before me and did a lot of work, and without their work, I would have very little in the way of pointers.
Yes.
So, I mean, I suppose the key things that have helped really is the discovery of the Rosetta Stone that enabled people to read hieroglyphs, and then it would have been decades later they actually found the city of Akhenaten.
Yes.
Tel Amarna, or Amarna as it's shortened to. And then, of course, from that point on, you're able to read the actual historical texts on the buildings, and of course the Egyptian stuff. There's the stuff in Akkadian, the cuneiform script as well. So
I agree with
that was the kind of international language of the time, if you like.
Yes.
So,
So of course you're in Ireland, and of course, this is where her final resting place is set to be. So what got you interested in writing this book, or got you interested in Scotia, the myth, as many call it, enough so to write this incredible book?
Well, there's a number of coincidences, really. I heard the story a long time ago, and I was like, oh yeah, that's interesting, but I didn't really pay it too much attention or take it too seriously. I just thought, well, yeah, it's possible, but I wasn't really aware that there was actually any real evidence to be found at the time. So this is like, I don't know, 10, 15 plus years that I sort of first heard about her. I ended up getting a job in a place just outside the town of Tralee, and I used to pass the monument for Scotia or Scotia or Scotta, depending on which book you've read and where you live. There's different ways of saying her name. So obelisk there, which is only about 6-7 feet tall, made by a local stonemason, and the hieroglyphs were, and the design of it was by another author called Akhenaten, who understands that stuff. I can't read hieroglyphs myself, so I thought that was very interesting. And at that point, I think, I can't remember if I'd been there before. I might have been there before. But anyway, so over the years, I've made several trips there. I got asked by an author in Dublin called Gary Brannigan to help him with his book. And one of the stories in there was the Pharaoh's Daughter, which is all about Scotia. So although I didn't actually write that version, I thought, I read it. And yeah, we produced that book together. And I wrote another book after Kerry Folk Tales called Dingle Folk Tales, which has my own version, which is somewhat longer. And then various people I spoke to, some archaeologists, other sort of, amateur historians, etc., authors, we talked about it. One or two said, oh yeah, it's all just myth. And others said, oh no, there's some interesting information there. There's stuff in Egypt that relates. So I started looking into this a lot more, and thought, well, actually, this could make an interesting book if there is any real evidence. So I thought I'll start researching it. So over a period of 3 years, I've just researched. And can you hear me still?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, my picture just for a second.
Oh, you're cutting out from your end a little bit. So
yeah. Well, I've got Starlink, so it should be good.
Should be. No, so you're A-okay.
But
so
anyway,
yeah.
So I thought, well, I'll keep going until I run into an obstacle, like something that just, a real stone wall that you can't get around, that isn't, but there wasn't anything. There wasn't any. I didn't find a single thing to suggest that it's not possible.
Right.
In fact, pretty much what I found was more and more evidence to suggest that such a thing as her being able to leave and migrate to Spain and onwards to Scotland and Ireland was entirely possible, far more possible than the conventional view of archaeology would lead you to believe. One of the problems with people accepting that is this false idea that the ancient people weren't sophisticated enough to travel long distances.
Yes, that's a big one. I think that, and I think being suppressed, information and history being suppressed
There's some Spanish archaeology that was suppressed.
Yes.
Forgetting the name of the guy now. In the 1800s, there he discovered a lot of Egyptian things, and his suggestions about the antiquity of his finds were very much poo-pooed, and he was literally forced to rewrite his research in order to preserve his career. And then the light, I found it on a Spanish website, that unearthed his writings about it. So, even in the late 19th century, you've got sort of rumblings and attempts to sort of coerce people and create a narrative that could be sort of put together.
That's the problem, going against the narrative.
Official version, and that's it. Don't go against the official version, and if you do so, you do so at your peril, and you're likely to be ridiculed, dismissed, and possibly just laughed at. So I think that's actually changing now.
It seems to be. I know that my archaeologist friend in the UK and I have talked about this many times, and he said, you have some, and they all agree with a lot of the things that they're finding, but they're all very they're conditioned to be able to say so much. Not that many of them are not on board with what's there, and you can just imagine how much is hiding in the museums that never see the light of day, that just sit away in a vault or a basement someplace, and it's because it's just so substantial and you just don't get to see it.
I think big problems is when you have like a progression and something interrupts that progression or even reverses it.
Yes,
they really don't like that.
No.
You've got a strange phenomenon in the Bronze Age, which is called the Late Bronze Age collapse.
Yes.
So you have a development of actual sea-going boats around, planking that can be used for that kind of sophisticated boats around 2000 BCE. So by the time you get to the 14th century BCE, which is the time we're talking about, Akhenaten and Tutankhamun and all that.
Yes.
They were building sophisticated ships. The Mycenaeans certainly were the early formative nations as well. And the Egyptians actually developed this. It wasn't some other culture, it was the Egyptians themselves. So it suggested, though, that they didn't actually use these boats to go anywhere. They just created, sophisticated boats to go up and down the Nile and potter around a little bit of the Mediterranean.
Yes.
They weren't good enough to go any further, which seems somewhat ridiculous given that you've got this amber trade going as far north as Norway. You've got tin coming certainly from Britain and Ireland. And then this sort of sea peoples, we call them, and no one really knows exactly who they were. It came along and it kind of shoved the whole Middle Eastern area backwards a bit. There was sort of certain civilizations just collapsed completely. Egypt survived that, although there's records of them having some difficulties. And recovery of the maritime trade, etc. But this is an awkward sort of situation. They like a nice straight line, so things start off here, things get more sophisticated going upwards in a straight line. They don't like oscillations or big setbacks, or they don't like to sort of have too much of a nuanced take on it. Like, for instance, the Dark Ages, as it's called, we're supposed to think that everyone was just sort of shoved into savagery, but that's not actually true at all. Throughout that Dark Ages period, you've got, for instance, the Byzantine Empire that continued on and was certainly not shoved into a dark age. And other parts of the world, like China, for instance. I mean, you tend to get a very sort of, I suppose, Eurocentric view a lot of the time. and I think most people, including myself, who had these sort of preconceived ideas we've learned at school about, for instance, America being discovered. Of course, it was already populated; it didn't need to be discovered. But Columbus was not the first person from this side of the Atlantic to head across to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of evidence,
True.
and archaeology now to prove this, that
Yes.
there were several sets of people who.
No, the Vikings were in South America in the 800s.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Templars were there in the 1200s.
The Irish were there as well.
Yes. Yes.
Brendan's quite famous.
Yes. Yes.
There may have been earlier ones too, and it looks as if the Americas were populated much earlier than people thought. So somewhere between 20 and 30,000 BCE,
Yes.
not this sort of like, a few thousand years BC.
No, it's very deceiving. Again, it falls into that going against the narrative, and they don't want to talk about a lot of the pre-Columbian settlements. Everybody figures it was all with Columbus. It's just, it's believed that Columbus was actually, when he came in, of course, that he was trying to round up Templars that had escaped there, and settled there and got married there. So what did they bring with them? Brazilian communities like being looked at. So this was already there in the 1200s. That's just one example.
Yeah.
So of course, the Egyptians were very technologically advanced. I'm not at all surprised that.
Well, a lot of the timeline we've inherited is coming back from this idea that the world was only, I suppose, I think there was some bishop who calculated it, I think, to be approximately like 5,000 years before Christ that the world started. And a lot of archaeology dismissed stuff that could possibly be earlier. They go, oh, well, that, couldn't possibly be older than that because,
yeah,
the world's old. So
couldn't be
but
that.
kind of thinking has somehow been maintained where we've got this sort of cutoff point where civilization began, which has been obviously blown apart by the discoveries in Turkey, particularly, and Malta, and of course Jericho in Israel is incredibly old as well, and various other sites around the world.
So, tell me the difference between like the myth itself and the reality. How far off are they? Or do you think the word myth is just being loosely thrown around in Ireland? Because this is something like a piece of myth of folklore that you would have grown up with.
Yeah, well, the thing is, if you look at Irish texts and the Scottish texts, they don't have very much information about herself. It seems to be focused quite a large extent on her husband. So there's he's given different names, but Gaithlos is the main name that came from the Ptolemaic era. It's a Greco-Egyptian historian, Manetho, I'm not sure how you say his name actually, who wrote, and a lot of the sources used his history. So it's very much about him going from possibly Armenia or Scythia. Armenia is not the same then as it is now. It's a much larger area. And there's mentions about Greece as well. So he went to Egypt, and that's where he meets Mary Taton or Scotia. They leave. So there's a complicated story there, depending on what various versions you read about why they left it. They get the time period wrong because it's tied very much in a lot of these stories to Moses, which is, Ramesses II period.
Yeah, so, which is totally off.
Well, it's about 70 to 90 years off, which isn't a huge amount of time. But what people don't realize, and people didn't realize for a very, very long time that whole period of Akhenaten through Tutankhamun, most of it was erased. You had the king's list that was altered to completely remove Akhenaten and Smenkere and I II. So you have like a jump. So it's no wonder people would get confused about which pharaoh we're talking about. When
Well,
you
I think it wasn't until they found Tutankhamun as well, because Ramses the Great was buried in, like, his tomb was put in front of Tutankhamun, which ages it pretty good, because Ramses was devastated just from debris, at which they say protected, Tutankhamun's tomb. So, like, right there, I mean, that doesn't prove some sort of a timeline.
Well, the end of the dynasty is Horemheb.
Yes.
Who wasn't a direct relative of, any of that family.
Yes.
He married the youngest daughter of Akhenaten. That's Meritaten's sister. There's 6 sisters, and possibly two brothers. Like Meritaten married possibly her half brother, but it's not confirmed. Anyway, Akhenaten, it's hard to say her name. She was the survivor of 3 marriages. She married her brother, half brother Tutankhamun. Of course, he died very young at 1819. She married the I II, who was a distant relative of hers, and then she married Horemheb, who is not related at all. He had been a very important official. So created the next dynasty, because he then chose one of his trusted loyal advisors to become the next pharaoh, and then you've got Ramesses I, and of course it's later on you have Ramesses II, probably the most famous pharaoh apart from Tutankhamun himself. I mean, if it wasn't for Howard Carter finding that tomb in 1922, he probably still would be the most famous pharaoh in the world,
Yes.
But I think Tutankhamun, and obviously that golden funeral mask, is so iconic. It's just captured people's imagination.
Who was believed to actually be the face of Scotia?
Yeah, well, it is just quite likely that it's been modified, and certainly some of the items in there, you can actually see that the cartouches have been slightly altered, and some of the female figures, etc., and female accoutrements have been changed. If she had been there, then why would you do that? I think the only reason why you would possibly do that is because she'd left, because she disappeared, gone away. So all of her very, very expensive funerary equipment could be reused. But I mean, people don't really see it in terms of the immense faith and immense devotion that the Egyptians had, and their belief in afterlife. People, it's like the equivalent of, I don't know, imagine you spent like $500,000 on your funeral today.
Yeah.
And you got yourself a gold casket and whatever. People would be utterly shocked, wouldn't they? No, not even, really rich people don't spend that kind of money on funeral. But there was an obsession with the afterlife and being well prepared for the next life, for going to, onwards. You're journeying through these 12 gates through the underworld to then go and sit with Osiris and Isis and stand before God and be judged and all this. So people put immense amount of money, as much as they could possibly afford, into preparing for their death. So the same, when you think about it, these people in the royal family of Egypt, they had unbelievable wealth. So they weren't afraid to spend absolute fortunes. If you look at some of the actual tombs, I've only seen them sort of online, programs, but the unbelievable amount of effort that's made, the size of them. I mean, Tutankhamun's tomb was very small compared to others, but it's still beautifully painted. That all required having to be carved and then painted, and then all the hieroglyphs had to be carefully drawn or cut, and all the acts, all the chariots, this ridiculously ornate. You've got this big golden coffin with the 4 goddesses on the corners sort of protecting his body, and then all the various other coffins inside, and of course his body in at the center of it.
Yes.
They were great expense, unbelievable expense. I don't know how you could even quantify it in today's terms, in what it cost to do such lavish burials with such incredibly expensive items put in. It would be like getting buried with your Ferrari and like all your, best jewelry, big stash of gold and diamonds.
Yes, I'm sure it takes place. I think that's why grave robbery became such a big thing back in the Victorian age.
Even in the times, it was a big thing.
Yes.
Within years of
Yes.
some of the pharaohs being buried, their graves are being robbed.
Yes.
Because people knew that there were vast fortunes buried along with the bodies.
Well, it's usually the people who built these tombs, they knew exactly how to get in and out. And it was speculated that they probably had modified things in there to make sure they could get in and out without.
It wasn't them. It may have been like their friends or family or something. A sort of inside job, like doing a bank robbery where you've got someone on the inside to
Yes.
security system, whatever, the equivalent of that kind of thing.
Yes.
So it may have been, and well, there is evidence of just brutal sort of entry where they obviously didn't know how they were getting in. They just hammered away and knocked holes into them. But in other cases, they found the correct door and prized them open, got in. So maybe they, as you said, they were tipped off. They knew they probably had someone in their family or even maybe they were involved themselves. Went back maybe a few years later, even a decade later, really. Who knows?
Yes.
It's hard to tell exactly when a lot of these have been robbed. It's an interesting thing with the rest of the family. The only person who hasn't shown up at all, I think, is actually Mary Tatum herself. They started building a tomb for her, but it was never used, which would suggest that she wasn't there to be buried. There's no record of her death either. So
because it is believed, as you make mention, that they did find most of the royal family. I know Nefertiti right now is still that's still on the fence. Like we don't know for sure.
I think they believe they have found her remains, although I'm not sure.
She's just sitting in the basement of the Cairo Museum.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
But
yeah.
What's very interesting, particularly, is that they found Akhenaten, and they weren't sure it was him. And they also found various other bodies as well. So Akhenaten's sarcophagus had the face removed, which is like a terrible. So rather than being grave robbers as such, some people have suggested, I think it probably could be true, that that his grave was ransacked by political or religious sort of.
Well, he was known as the heretic, right?
Those who were angry with him, did to Egyptian polytheism. And it was sort of a revenge thing, if you like, ripping up his resting. Because, of course, he had to be moved from his original tomb because I guess the writing was on the wall that he was going to get he was going to be sabotaged.
Mm-hmm.
That would be looking to destroy his tomb. So all of the family were moved and hidden in secret location in the
Mm-hmm.
Valley of Kings.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it had all been smashed in, and there's evidence of the staircase being destroyed, and badly mutilated his coffin,
Mm-hmm.
and smashed up lots of the the effects that were in there.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
they did DNA testing, and they showed that Tutankhamun is that man's son, and of course they know who Tutankhamun was, so it's pretty
Yes.
obvious and that was indeed Akhenaten.
So wow. So this is what I mean. Are you hoping that this is something that would happen? Because they know where Scotia is. They know
Well,
where she's buried
should be. I mean, the
in
thing is,
Ireland.
you
Yes.
can't actually, you can't say 100%. I believe that I would say I'm 99% certain that she's
Mm.
there underneath those stones. It's just really stone circle with a larger central sort of almost square stone.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
I've still got that 1% doubt because no one has excavated it. There's been very little interest in excavating it, and you know, if it is a grave, they need to exhume the body, um, and then test it. I would hope that like Tutankhamun, who's been put back in his own grave, that if she is there, that she will be reinterred and not taken off to a museum because
See, that's a chance that you're taking, right?
these mummies that are now in Berlin or in London, I'm
But they,
kind of
the difference is they
whether
were
that's right to actually take their bodies away and
no, a lot in the 1800s went missing. In fact, I knew a man who bought, there was a museum in Niagara Falls, Canada. It was an oddities museum. There were 8 mummies there. He ended up with 6, I believe, out of it when he bought that museum out because it closed. So he bought out everything that was in it. And he sold 6 of those to a museum in Atlanta who
right.
immediately recognized that they had a royal mummy. They contacted Zahi Hawass, who flew down. He saw a picture. He knew right away who it was, and it was the missing mummy of Ramses I.
Wow.
So Ramses I got first mummy ever to be issued a passport and got flown to Egypt and is now in the new museum of Cairo.
But that's
But
fantastic. They should really be returned. And I mean, if it does turn out
yes,
Mary Tatum is buried there,
but that's
then
different. She went there of her own free
yeah,
will and died there.
I would say that she probably should be, DNA tested and then reburied. I mean, it's
Yeah.
generally not acceptable to just dig people up and rebury them somewhere else or
But
put
it
them on.
happens.
So,
I
and people
know.
don't see these people, these mummies, as actual real people. These were real people
They
that
were
lived.
real
They're
people.
not
Yeah.
toys or sort of dolls. They're
But
actual.
they see mummies being taken as an antiquity, along with many other antiquities. During the Victorian ages, it was
Mm,
ridiculous, the things that disappeared. The bust of Nefertiti that's in Berlin, from what I understand, anything I've read was literally it was hawked and stolen, taken out. I think it's different when these mummies are treated as antiquities and stolen from the country. In your case with Scotia and Ireland, she went there. She
mm.
resided there. She
Well,
died there. And do you think, in your opinion, she should remain there or go back and taken from her husband and go back with her family?
it's hard to know really.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, because we don't know where her husband and her first husband, probably Smenkhero, not really sure what happened to him either, where his body was.
Wow.
But she actually spent a very very brief time in Ireland because much of that time
Hmm.
conducting a war. So in the sort of Irish annals, they had tremendous difficulty in actually kind of getting on land and sort of fighting the people who were already there. She
Hmm.
arrived what's generally known as the Malaysians or the Gaels,
Yes.
and however many of her Egyptian entourage. It doesn't say in any of the books how many of her people from Egypt came with her. We don't know that information. But they came from Spain via Scotland and arrived into Kerry around the Dingle Peninsula, and that's where this huge battle took place, the Battle of Slieve Mish, which resulted in her being thrown from her horse, or perhaps she was already hit by an arrow or a spear. We don't really know. Sort of oral versions suggest that she was pregnant, although at this point she already had sons who kind of matured, so that might just be a sort of an embellishment, to make it dramatic. We don't really know proof of that. If they found a body, they could see if someone was carrying an infant, if
if you're that far along, yes.
If it's been progressed beyond like the really early stages, then you'd be able to discover that looking at a body. We don't know if there's anybody capable of doing mummification, or if it was just buried in the sort of
which there may not be any real native.
We don't know, because no one's actually dug up the grave to see.
Yes. But now, what I was told by my archaeologist friend Mark Ollie, if anybody wants to look him up, he's been on the show. He talked about this because he's done a lot of Genesis books on Genesis, things like that, all kinds of books as well. But he made mention that Akhenaten had Celts in his entourage, within his private guard. Have you found anything to elaborate anything like that? Because it sure would make sense if that was the case, why she would have ended up in Scotland if she was already, used to being around people from the region.
Well, that's quite interesting, because you've got certainly at a later point a migration of sort of Celtic people into Turkey, which is
not far.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility.
That time period, the conventional view is that you've got a migration going from the west, from sort of probably the Danube region across, ending up with Britain via France probably, and on into Ireland.
It's an interesting hypothesis, if that's it.
It's difficult to know. You certainly have people from that region going down. Certainly the Scythians went down into the Assyrian Empire and actually just sort of wiped out a huge part of the Assyrian Empire at the time. I mean, it almost collapsed at one point, and then so we don't know how far south. They certainly came down sort of towards what's now sort of like the Lebanon, Palestine, Israel area, and sort of the Egyptians sort of didn't let them go any further than that. So this term Celt really is you're kind of getting that term really from sort of one real reference in Roman times. So actually what a Celt actually is really hard to define in any sort of concrete terms. But and you've got sort of a couple of different migrations as well. So I really don't know about that, but it does seem quite interesting that that's been suggested. Of course, there has been a long history of rulers having foreign mercenaries. If you look at slightly later on, the emperors of Rome, they had a lot of Germanic peoples in the Praetorian Guards, and later on the Byzantines, they had Vikings as part of their guard, and even the Babylonians as well, they use foreign mercenaries to a large extent. So it's an unheard of thing to be having foreign troops as part of your sort of like battalion, your entourage. So I'm.
Yes.
I'd say I'm open to the idea, but I really don't know. But I think it's certainly very possible that
Hmm.
Akhenaten and other pharaohs may have employed foreign mercenaries from all over the place.
To me, it would make a degree of sense to go, because I mean, she comes into Greece and Spain, like that's within the Mediterranean area,
Mm,
coming in from her, from North Africa, basically through
yeah,
where they were, Amara, but to end up way the other way. I would think that if she grew up, or she was exposed to people who spoke of Ireland, and I mean Scotland wasn't even. I mean, they believe Scotland, that she was responsible. She's the mother of
yeah. Well,
Scotland, sort of thing. So it may not have been a thing yet, but
no,
to
well,
go to
it,
that part of the world must have
mm,
a seed
yeah,
must have been planted, I would think.
it's hard to know. In the myths, the sort of what they call pseudo histories, or sort of like the unverifiable accounts.
Yes.
Um, there's this huge tower in northwest Spain, Brogan's Tower, and apparently one of their on the group at the top of this tower sees this distant land, just a slight glimmer of a line on the horizon, sort of thing.
Hmm.
And so they go off, and it's interesting. The currents from northern Spain will bring you across to Dingle, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
one could imagine that they just thought, oh well, we'll go and see what's there.
What's
Maybe
there?
there certainly was a Roman very large tower, a lighthouse. Maybe there was an early one before that.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, these things often get recycled, reused. Like for instance, the tower, the Pillars of Hercules,
Yes.
the uh, the lighthouse built um, by Alexander, that got recycled, that got turned into a fortress. So who's to say that like the
Yes.
house, the Brigantium isn't made of like an earlier one?
Hmm.
And they may have found all these convenient blocks lying around from an earlier ruined.
Oh, they repurposed
Well,
everything. Nothing went to waste in ancient times, for the
yeah,
most part.
all of these things didn't just disappear; they got used somewhere else. I mean,
Hmm.
even the pyramids in modern Cairo, a lot of that polished white, I think it was a
Hmm.
granite, was on the outside.
Hmm. All the limestone, yeah, got removed.
Was white anyway on the outside.
Yes.
That got
Yes.
stripped off those pyramids at Giza and used in the building of, uh,
Yes.
you know, in the Islamic period that was used to build Cairo. So
Hmm. Yes.
things being rebuilt or taken down and reused. So, it's quite possible that there was something
Hmm.
there, Spain at that,
Yes.
and maybe
Um,
they got in their ships and sailed and ended up. Uh, the story is that they were having a bit of a hard time. The local people, indigenous people, weren't accepting of them, and they had like a lot of troubles and obviously conflict
hmm. Hmm.
leaving, and that's how they end up going to Ireland.
Hmm.
So again, when they arrived, there's these people called the Tuatha who were there before, and you have this big war. This went on for quite some time, and
Hmm.
Scotia dies quite early on in this war, unfortunately, and then she's gone. But she's mentioned as the ex queen of Egypt, ex princess of Egypt, daughter of the pharaoh, etc.,
Hmm.
being involved in the battle and died. So herself, there's not a huge amount about her.
No, it just looks like she didn't get to be there and reside there for very long.
Oh, a very short time. Look at things.
Considering she founded everything, and
Well, the
then
thing
she,
was obviously important, and
yes.
her very remembered. And you have interesting evidence there of uh, a burial in Tara, which is like the sovereign site of Ireland, the sort of sacred and sort of royal of Ireland, where you've got a body found there from that time period, which had Egyptian beads, which are an exact match for those found on Tutankhamun's body, and also some other bits of jewelry like collar that are very much matched in style. So whether that guy was Egyptian or just had, got Egyptian. So, one wonders, how did they end up there at that time period? It's sort of very odd, considering they're not supposed to be able to get to Ireland. How did it all end up there?
Well,
So,
and she has a nice connection of her with the Stone of Destiny. Destiny, aka the Stone of Scone.
Yeah, well, her descendants took on this name of Scoti.
Yes.
Now that's what the Romans called them.
Yes.
But one presumes that's like their own version of their own name for themselves. We don't know whether they actually called themselves Scoti at that particular time.
Yes.
They probably something similar to that name, I would have thought. And then these people migrated to Scotland and took over Scotland. It wasn't called Scotland now, it was part of Britain, an ancient kingdom of the Picts. So the Picts were there before, they already fought the Romans. They were joined by the Scoti in fighting against the Romans, and so did the Angles and the Jutes, I think, and the Saxons. All at once, there was a convergence on Roman Britain around 367, I think it is, and then there were more incidents after. Eventually, the Roman garrison left in 410 CE altogether. But by this time, the Scoti, the people from particularly Ulster region, were moving en masse into Western Scotland and set up a kingdom there. And it spread gradually, I think, intermingled with the Picts, and you end up with a sort of fusion of Pictish and Scottish people, which became the Scottish,
So she obviously had children if she ended up, there were descendants.
She already had children before she arrived, and we don't know really it doesn't say how many children she had exactly, but certainly there's this lineage that these people that trace their descendancy, their genealogy, if you like, back to her.
Yes.
They're very proud of it. They're very proud of being sort of a distant descendant of Scotia or Scotia. And find that this information, if you like, has been very much exploited historically to give Scotland legitimacy. Got this Declaration of Arbroath, which is obviously so much later. It's over 2,000 years later, but part of Scotland trying to establish its legitimacy as a nation is through this Stone of Scone and through the lineage going back to ancient Egypt through Scotia.
Well, I mean, it's sort of homage in a way as well with the Stone of Scone that, she brought it back with her from Spain, basically,
one version,
and that it is still used to this day for coronations.
I don't think she did actually bring it back herself. I was suggesting that her descendants brought the stone.
The stone.
But they didn't bring the stone. It was already in Ireland, brought by the Tuatha people who were there. So
that's interesting.
Some of the versions they've suggested she brought it herself.
Yes.
Millispen brought it along with everything. But I would suggest the stories of the Tuatha about bringing these 4 treasures goes back to an earlier time.
Yes.
And they brought the stone, which was then became the possession of the Malaysians and Scottish descendants.
Yes.
They carried on using the stone in Tara, and it was then brought by there was various different people who claimed to brought it. Null of the Nine Hostages was a very famous Irish king, and it's suggested he's one of the people that brought it across to Scotland.
Yes.
And then
It's
it just
believed
stayed
that it
there.
went to Canada. Have you
Oh,
heard that variation?
no, I have nothing about that. No.
There's a stone. It sits in a place, I think it's still there, called Casa Loma, which would belong to Sir Henry Pellet, and very wealthy man, built the castle here, brought everything over from Scotland and Ireland to build this castle. It took many years to build it. And he was contacted by the Royal Ontario Museum, and they said, we have something that you would be interested in. And he went and looked at it. And because he was from, he was from Irish or Scottish descent, and he traded his entire authentic suit of armor, his whole collection of authentic suits of armor, for the stone. So a replica of the throne was built in the 1800s. They took that throne, they put the stone in there. And where it gets stranger is, because I used to represent the castle for tours and such, and the curator told me the story. She said at one point they had these rabbis who were visiting from Jerusalem, and they requested to speak with somebody with authority at the castle. And they said to her, there are two guardians who are watching over this stone. Just say, this is a very special stone. And we just want you to know that there are two spirit guardians watching over the stone. There's one on each side, and they don't leave it.
Wow,
So when I was told that, I was like, what? But then you think about it, who would trade a valuable, authentic collection of real medieval suits of armor for a rock at the end of the day, unless you thought there was something substantial with it, with enough evidence to back it up?
Well, let me tell you, there is still a stone called Leofal, which is, the up in Tara, which is a different shape. It's more phallic shape.
Yeah.
So some people would accept that's a stone. Other people would, like myself, would think that the original stone is gone and it's gone somewhere else, most probably Scotland. But there was more than one coronation stone. You have to remember that there's you had 5 provinces at one time.
Yes.
And then you have a special coronation stone for the High King or Ard Ri of Ireland. So
Yes.
in theory, then you could have probably had 6 major coronation stones.
So there could be different ones.
Yeah, where I used to live, there was down the road a few kilometers, about 3 kilometers away, was the coronation site of the Kings of Ulster.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a coronation stone there, which had been similar shapes of oblong, squarish that you stood on.
Yes.
And that's vanished. No one knows where that went. And the entire site is just gone. It's been probably plowed so many times that it's just a field. And all,
yes.
At the time when Dermot McMurrough invited Normans over, there was great turmoil. The Ferns, which was the capital of Leinster, got completely burned to the ground, and there was chaos and disorder. And who knows what happened to that stone? Maybe it got shipped off somewhere else, or it could have been destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's possible that this stone that's in Canada is a coronation stone of some sort. Maybe this guy saw it and thought, "Oh wow, that looks like looks like the real thing."
It looks identical. There must have been some kind of documentation, being a museum, to lead Sir Henry to believe that it was authentic in one form or another, to put out that kind of, to trade for that kind of a collection.
Well, if you go back to the Stone of Scone,
yes,
it's obviously regarded as a very important item, because I don't imagine that Edward II would have gone to bother of stealing it and taking it down to England if it was not of significance and great sort of emotional, spiritual, and sort of nationalistic importance.
And when you say that, especially spiritualistic, the fact that these two rabbis who came from, the Jerusalem, the Holy Land at the time, on a visit, on a tour, said, we see 2 spirit guardians that stand on each side of the stone, and they're guarding it because they're saying this is very special. They didn't really understand at that point until the curator said, the curator told them the story. So when you say that, I'm kind of like going, I wonder now if there's any sort of.
There's very unproven connections. You probably heard of Jacob's pillow. There's some people do this stone of scone, or the Leofal, is actually Jacob's pillow. And there was an interesting thing happened. I think it was around the turn of the 1900s. A bunch of British Israelites came and sort of dynamited Tara looking for the Ark of the Covenant. So you've got the biblical links with some of these ancient artifacts. Some of them are entirely spurious because there was a tendency of monks writing down these stories to try and link in the Bible or the Old Testament in some way. So
yes, it's fascinating.
It's really hard to know if there's actually any real connection at all, or if it's just entirely.
It's a great tale.
With these other links, but then there are definite milestones that you can find that are based on actual archaeology and DNA evidence, etc., as opposed to just a story that you really don't know is connected.
So many antiquities left the ancient world, and to come here, were brought into private collections or museums. Nothing really surprises me anymore. Things start to surface, and you're just like, you realize how much, especially with the museum here that was in Niagara Falls, Canada at the time, the one that, like I said, I knew the gentleman who owned it, who bought it, and the items that were in there were just, it was surreal. How do you end up with a royal mummy? Like, things were brought over from the ancient world, and the collection was just massive. It was a group of partners who bought all of it out because it was just so big. So, did it come in somehow through that connection and ended up getting filtered in? Because they were all from Toronto, Canada, which is where this stone is right now. And some of the stuff ended up in the museums. And so I just sit back now and kind of go, gosh, it's just crazy,
Yeah. Well, there's a huge interest in antiquities. There has been for a long, long time. I remember I was watching something about a documentary about Rome, and I think, was it Venice? I'm trying to know. Some of these huge horses taken from Constantinople, and then you've got all these artifacts taken in ancient times from Egypt and from Persia. It didn't start like, with the Victorians or it's been going on since long before that, where one empire takes over another one, or takes a city state, and they rob their most valued treasures and bring them back as booty. That was a thing the Romans loved to do. They would go and invade somewhere and then have a big triumph, and they would parade all the loot down the streets of Rome, as well as all the prisoners and important people they captured, and they'd have a big old party, and there'd be like free bread for everyone, and everyone gets drunk and have a great celebration.
Yes.
Have all this loot that they've robbed from wherever, whether it was Greece or Carthage or.
It was normal.
Yeah,
right. It was normal to do so.
It's a horrible thing to do, but it's something that's been going on for a very long time, looting older cultures and their possessions.
Yes, I mean that was all part of taking over an area. Just loot, and there's just stuff everywhere. That's I mean, you just never know where things are going to end up. Either way, it's a great story. But getting back to our beautiful princess now, so she's buried now. Somebody had said to me that she was buried near a pub in Ireland. I'm just like, well, that's interesting.
Well, if you go in a straight line from her where she is into Tralee town, it's probably not very far.
Oh,
Unfortunately, you can't walk in a straight line from like the closest pub off to where she lives because you're you've got to drive through this little village
yeah.
and then you've got to park by the side of the road. There's literally space for one car. You
Hmm.
go over a gate and then you kind of walk across a bit of a swampy field. You pick up the footpath and then going down, and
Hmm.
mostly down actually for a while, and then you've got to cross a muddy riverbank several times, these little bridges, and it takes at least 30 minutes for someone who's really fit to do that journey because it's like a labyrinthine path. It's sort of snaking all over the place. It's following the riverbank.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's the little obelisk. Yeah. So it's um, it's not. You can't get there in a straight line. It's actually not that far. If you could just walk in a straight line, it probably wouldn't take very long. You could stagger down there from the pub, but you're not going to be able to do that, unfortunately.
Oh,
As it's quite visited, considering how difficult it is to get to. Quite a lot of
yes.
people do go and see it, but it wouldn't be a major attraction like.
So this is her burial spot, essentially.
Well, this is the marker. This is on the corner of the road that leads up to the gate to to get there. So once you get to the gate, you've still got at least 30 minutes walk before.
Wow.
And then, if you're unlucky and it's been like at the moment would be perfect. We've had 3 weeks with no rain, so it would
Yes.
be perfect time because the riverbank would all be dried out and you have a nice easy walk. But if
Hmm.
you go there in winter or during heavy rain, oh,
Hmm.
it it's not much fun. But then actually going in the heavy rain was probably the best thing I ever did because I discovered these markings on the central stone that I hadn't seen before because you don't see them when it's dry.
Hmm. Um, so is so she's buried alone. Like, so is she buried like
Maybe her
in,
horse is supposed to be next door. You've got two items. You've got the little stone circle with the central stone, and next to
Mhm.
it, sort of like a cairn, a pile of stones, which looks to me like it's collapsed.
Mhm.
But supposed to be where the horse is buried. Her horse buried right
Oh,
close by.
oh
Uh,
wow.
um, but of course, neither have been dug up, so we don't know if there's a horse or not. We don't know
Hmm.
if there's a person there for sure. But
Hmm.
um, that is the story, and I noticed these lines, which the photographs are in the book.
Hmm.
And I just took the photographs and thought that looks really interesting. It's weird, isn't it? I wonder what the hell that is. And I thought, well, it could be just graffiti, but I took a whole load of photographs
Hmm.
and just filed them away for a long time. And then
Hmm.
going the comparison with an actual book of hieroglyphs did yield some interesting results. I found two symbols that are actually matching with real hieroglyphs.
Hmm.
But it needs more analysis. I'm not, I don't have lidar equipment. I don't know anything photogrammetry or, you could X-ray the stone. Whatever. There would be ways to actually um, read it better because it's covered in lichen as well. So maybe some of the lines have been obliterated by the lichen as well, and also by the passage of time because you're talking about 3,300 odd years ago when this would have been done.
There's an app you can get called Rock Art Enhancer,
All
and it
right.
was given to me. Yeah, it was given to me by a friend who just found incredible stuff on his. I
Mm,
know, rock art enhancer. He found some carvings on his land right now that is being examined, and you can take photos with it, and he's been able to enhance and some of the lines that are very faded
mm.
because they're deep enough, I guess, that this thing just brings it right out.
Yeah. Well, I think ideally someone who's an expert at this would go and have a look at that central stone.
Yes.
And because I just took photographs with my camera, and then zoomed in Photoshop to have a closer look at them, and
Mm-hmm.
sort of
Yeah.
see if you the book I used the yellow kind to mark the
Mm-hmm.
shape,
Yes.
you know.
I have a
But
friend who's a stonemason in Scotland, if you're
I
interested.
mean, would you be an archaeologist? Would be who specializes in
Yes.
rock art or ancient symbols, etc. Who could actually look at it and
Mm-hmm.
sort of analyze it professionally.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a
Yes.
amateur historian and a writer. I'm not.
Has
Uh,
nobody done this? Like, is nobody interested enough in looking at
I,
this piece of their history?
nobody actually. I don't think anyone noticed it before because I mean I've been there a whole load of times.
Mm-hmm.
I only noticed it because of the heavy rain.
Yes.
Because it the stones come absolutely soaked, you can
Mm-hmm.
actually see these indentations. But
Mm-hmm.
if it's sort of just almost dry, you or dry, you wouldn't even notice them at all. So I
Yes.
that's probably why no one's actually pardon me,
No, of course.
actually seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose also the fact that it's been dismissed as rubbish by a lot of people. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
People didn't even probably even bother to look, because
Mm-hmm.
well, there's nothing. It's just a bunch of stones that someone put there, and it's just a you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, I
then,
mean, maybe, now, of course,
yeah,
you've written this book, you're local
mm.
as well. Maybe it's enough to get people to write in. So
Well,
anybody listening out there, if you just write in to just tell them who the proper authorities are to write into, maybe you can get something spearheaded and going. I think it's a really rich part of your history as a country. Not, Scotland, Ireland. I mean, she's with
yeah,
you guys,
names. It's an
So,
episode of one of the sort of iconic periods of history. This
mhm,
the war between the Malaysians and the Tutankhamun is like a sort of an epic story, which is quite
mhm.
incredible. And even today, people are aware of that in the history. And certainly in the local area in Kerry, people are quite proud of this sort of idea of
Yeah,
Scotia. But
yeah.
as I said, I think maybe now a lot of different areas are being reevaluated. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, of course, been some
Yeah.
uh, lore about Akhenaten in
Mm.
Egypt, and rumors of a lost city, etc. I
Mhm.
think Akhenaten was actually discovered by accident by a bunch of goat herders, of sheep herders, if I'm right. And they just stumbled across sort of tombs, caves with they look
Mhm.
like, but turned out to be tombs. And then further investigation, they uncovered this huge city which was buried in sand, like so much of Egypt. So many of
Mhm.
these ancient temples were just
The
completely
desert swallows it up.
everything's swallowed up and
Yes.
forgotten about.
Mhm.
So um, this story survived somehow, but the city and her family just got lost. So when you go to look for this person in Egypt, for a long time there would be nothing to find because nobody knew about the city, nobody knew about
Mhm.
Akhenaten or even about Tutankhamun hardly. There was a few monuments found, remaining with
Mhm.
name, etc. But a lot of that had got been destroyed
Mhm.
along with Akhenaten's artifacts. But then they
Mhm.
just entire city. So you realize there's this whole episode of Egyptian history, obviously because of this heretic religion, this sort of early monotheism of the worship of the Aten that
Mhm.
led
Yes.
to being abandoned, literally smashed up as much as they could, and then they abandoned the city.
Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
actually, what happened actually, Tutankhamun actually left the city already, but no, he didn't damage it. It was Horemheb who came after, who
Mhm.
went started smashing everything up and trying to
Mhm.
play as much of Arcanism as possible. Because this was revolutionary what he did. And of course, Tutankhamun was tainted. He did change his name. He wasn't born Tutankhamun.
No.
Born as Tutankhaten. He
Mm-hmm.
changed his name to appease the priesthood and the Egyptian people.
Mm-hmm.
Say, hey, I'm not into this art and stuff anymore. Look, I've changed. I'm devoted to Amun now. So
do you think that was the demise of the royal family, was because he, Akhenaten, changed his name and went totally into a direction that the old priests were just like, no, this isn't acceptable. And then because you have, like, again, you're looking at Scotia's first husband. Nobody knows where he is. Members of the royal family, like they've just had to move them in fear of being desecrated. And Tutankhamun, of course, dies unexpectedly. So did he escape this?
Unexpectedly. You've got a huge number of deaths.
Yes.
That looks a bit suspicious. And as like some, even Egyptian archaeologists have suggested that Akhenaten himself was murdered, that possibly Tutankhamun was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
Been some controversy about the head injury, and some said, oh no, that wasn't really head injury, it was just when they were inspecting his body.
Yes.
But that's not entirely conclusive. But then a thing that's hugely overlooked is his whole chest was smashed in, pushed in, like his chest had collapsed, like he'd been crushed. Right. So, how does that happen to you? It doesn't happen as you just like, you're walking down the street, mind your own business. Next thing, your chest has been smashed in. Something happened to him, like a chariot accident, perhaps, or
maybe.
Like, attacks.
Do you think they would have repaired that during the embalming a little bit? They would have just brought that up. Could it have happened after the process?
He also had like a bad leg, and they said
yes,
possible gangrene problem, and also traces of malaria as well. But so there's things that. But then you've got the other Smenkere, who you mentioned there, the first husband.
The first husband
seems to have disappeared, and various couple of the other, the two Akhenaten's two wives died, and Akhenaten died, and you've got like only one of the 6 sisters who made it through to the end of the dynasty, and. Obviously, there was a huge amount of animosity, probably most of all from the priesthood of Amun. They would have been horrified, probably partly because of a loss of power, because like the chief priest of Amun would have like so much power, really even power to state the pharaoh even. So
Akhenaten took that from them essentially.
Yeah, and also they were very religious people. So apart from the political and sort of power kind of play involved. So they were very religious people. So they probably may have thought that Akhenaten was going to bring disaster and sort of chaos upon Egypt, and they probably maybe actually thought that something had to be done to save Egypt from this terrible heresy.
But he ruled for like close to a couple of decades, didn't he?
Yeah, about 17 odd years, I think it was.
Yeah, 17, 19 years, something like that. Yeah.
But obviously, while he was alive, he had absolute authority.
Yes.
So, when he was gone, I think that's when you see this crumbling, and then you have, this appeal for help, which is described as the Zana affair after this Hittite son of a Hittite king who went to assist the queen, and you have this war that breaks out, sort of just in the aftermath of Tutankhamun. I think when Ida II, who succeeded him, you've got this war with the Hittites. But I mean, before that, you had a lot of problems with a sort of not exactly a collapse, but a sort of shrinkage of the empire's influence. And Akhenaten was obsessed with the art, and he didn't really care about foreign affairs or even the vassal state. And international relations, he was seemingly notoriously stingy when it came to like international affairs, sort of reciprocal gift giving. that was expected. There's like documents complaining
Oh yeah,
about.
like he skimped out on that too. He's a bit of a cheapskate.
Yeah,
When you wrote that, I laughed. I was just
yeah.
like, of course he was.
I think he
So
was so obsessed with his city and the
yeah.
new that he probably poured all the money into that and neglected
Mm-hmm.
other aspects of Egyptian life. And I can imagine ordinary Egyptians being rather concerned about this and possibly
Mm.
really upset. Imagine your family has followed a religion X for
Mm-hmm.
500 or more, whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
suddenly this king comes along and says, "Right, we're done with X. This Y is the new religion, and we're all going to follow Y from now on and forget about X." There would surely there
That's
be
hard.
kickback against that, some resistance. But I
Mm-hmm.
mean, obviously, with the authority that Akhenaten would have had,
Mm-hmm.
you if you openly defied him, you could expect probably to be put to death. I would have thought.
Mm-hmm. So
So
do you think this is why his daughter would have escaped, especially after the death of her first husband, who nobody really knew a whole lot about in the first place, but then he passes and we don't know where he is. Do you think maybe that's why she would have
yeah,
married somebody totally non-Egyptian and basically got out of Dodge, as they say?
yeah,
Just
absolutely. Because obviously, with Akhenaten gone,
yeah.
you could see the crows circling or the vultures getting ready to
Well,
pick
she
it.
was principal wife at that time, or took the role of the principal royal
It
wife. Is that right?
was elevated to the role of principal wife of Akhenaten, and then it's doubtful. Maybe Menkaure was her half brother. It's been
Yes.
suggested that he was maybe a cousin or even the brother
Mm.
of Tutankhamun. So he
Yeah.
became pharaoh with her as
Yes.
co-ruler, as queen, and
Mm-hmm.
then died. And we don't know how he died, what exactly happened to him, but he had a very, very short reign.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yes.
at that point, you then have Tutankhamun, who's only a boy still. He's still only like 9 years old, and he's the pharaoh.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that she would have been in a very precarious position. And, at this point, she's lost her grandmother, she's lost her father, her mother, her, her stepmother. She's
Mhm.
lost, I think, four of her sisters, her husband.
Yeah. That's if that's not a sign right there.
And obviously a very hostile priesthood of Amun and probably politicians, generals who are like not happy at all about the
Mm.
situation.
Yes.
You just probably
Yes.
thought, hey, I've got to get out of here before I'm also gone.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yes.
know,
But I
I
mean,
mean,
it seemed like it would have been a relatively quick jump into to a new marriage, and who was looking after Tutankhamun? Like you would think that they would have taken him along if he was 9 years old.
well, I suppose someone had to maintain the family line, and he
It's like,
was
sorry, kid, you're it. Yeah,
did very quickly
it's
as
tough.
soon as he was I think into his teens, he did declare himself as uh,
As Pharaoh.
sort of a what would be the word? A sort of like a upholder of sort of the old religion. He restored the old religion of
Yes.
Ra was restored, and he
Hmm.
went lengths to sort of make sure that happened, and to very publicly do so.
Hmm.
And he changed his name, and his sister, his wife. That was very odd. Seems very odd marrying your sister, but you know,
Normal back then.
in religion, Osiris and Isis were actually brother and sister, and they married each other. So
Yes.
you have a precedent in the religion. Uh,
Yes.
his sister also changed her name. The royal couple. So they probably thought, oh well, look, we're going to get away with this. We just jump back to the old order and
Hmm.
accept it. And he moved the capital back up north again, and we don't know for sure what happened to him. He
Hmm.
well have been assassinated, because I would have thought there would be a tremendous anger against the whole family, and they probably didn't trust him.
They'll just eradicate him.
Yeah, because of his father and his whole family involved in this cult of the Arten, and he didn't actually abandon the Arten altogether, but he re-embraced the old order, but he didn't actually, the Arten was part of what was already there, but it wasn't prominent. It wasn't the
it was always running in the background, essentially.
Yeah.
And
So
as I'm sure they suspected
of him, and I mean, he could have been an accident. He could have had a chariot accident. He could have ended up gangrene from his leg that might have killed him.
Yes.
But there's certainly a lot of circumstantial evidence to suggest that he was hated, and second was hated. And well, that's really evidenced by look what happened after when Horemheb gets in, and an attempt to absolutely annihilate the previous dynasty of in the time of the beginning of the 19th dynasty. They're not mentioned anymore. There's no mention of these people and their capital, their religion. It's just erased as if it had never existed.
I find it's just interesting that they find pretty much every member of the family except for our princess, who apparently is up in Ireland. What you see that it's just like the missing link in there, and all this time nobody knows where is she. Why was there no funeral? There's no trace of any of that. And then all of a sudden, lo and behold, you guys have this incredible legend or piece of folklore that ends up possibly being the missing link from this family.
Yeah, well, I really hope that somebody's going to do this. There will be a university somewhere or a set of archaeologists who will be inspired by my work and the work of those who came before me on this subject to actually go and seek permission to excavate that site.
Yes.
Be a little bit tricky. I think that's one of the reasons why it hasn't been done, is because you can't just drive up there. You can't get easy access to it. Like, the most famous site in Ireland probably is Newgrange, and there's a road in front of it. So if you wanted to go and do more archaeology there, you've really no problem. You just drive up with your truck, unpack all your stuff. You're talking about either carrying stuff on your back across a river several times, across a load of mud, or you're talking about getting a helicopter and
coming in. So she remains undisturbed and falls into this myth and legend folklore until somebody can get in there and compare, if you could even get DNA. Because
if there's a body there of any that's not completely decomposed, then you will get DNA, and then you'll do a direct comparison with Tutankhamun and Akhenaten, and I think now they've got Nefertiti and various other the bodies of the sisters. So you could do a DNA comparison with all of them, and you'd very quickly know. Even if it turned out not to be, you'd wonder, well, if there's someone buried there at all, then that's obviously, somebody important.
Yes.
I would be inclined to think that if there's anyone buried there, it probably is her. It probably is Mary Taton of Scotia, as she's come to be known. So someone will one day do that.
Yes. Well, I hope that you're going to do enough of these shows to basically just get this information out there. And, maybe this will happen. Maybe, it's how it starts. Is just you start this trend and people just want to know more. I think you guys are sitting on a really amazing, historical piece of history. Something has to come to it. The mystery is nice, but so is finding out the truth. It's so important. So I've put your website in the stream. I've flashed it up a few times. Where can they buy your book, and what do you have coming up?
Well, you can get a signed copy from my own website, which is you showed on LukeEastwood.com, but you can get it on I think Barnes and Noble's the cheapest. If you're in the Americas, it's probably easier to get off either Barnes and Noble or Amazon because you
Yes.
won't pay so much postage. The
Yes.
cost of international postage has gone really crazy here in the last. Well, like everything's gone.
Everywhere. Yes.
Yeah,
I'll put the Amazon link up
sure.
in the show description. So if they want
Right.
to go in, anybody on this side of the world wants to go and find it, you can click on. Once you're on Amazon, you can click on any country in the world and go to Amazon in that country. Worst case, I personally would want a signed copy and would deal directly with the author, because more money for all that hard work goes back to the author and not to Amazon. So I'm a supporter of the author. So yes, and it's an amazing book too. Just saying. So,
Well, well, I think all these things are cumulative. It's sort of people build on what they've experienced, what they've learned from elsewhere, and it's sort of eventually we are building a better picture of the past. I
yes.
think being very much controlled and very elitist in the past, but I think what's happened in the last few decades is there's a sort of alternative archaeology, alternative history, which has
Yes.
actually gained some level of legitimacy rather than just being like, everyone being regarded as freaks and crazy people. Of course, there are some ideas out there which are based on nothing
Mm-hmm.
at all, but there's a lot of people who've gone and looked at different sites and they found things that the sort of previous archaeologists have completely overlooked.
I think
And
it's technology as well, Luke.
yeah, that's also
Satellites are finding everything. LiDAR. There's so much now that you can't hide it. It's not as easy to hide things now with all this technology. There are archaeologists who use satellite for everything. Then they go down on the spot and they start looking and they find it.
Yeah, I think also the internet has changed stuff. When I
Yes.
first got interested in history and archaeology and sort of, ancient spiritualities, you had to literally go and get a bus or train or drive to like big libraries in London or in Dublin, go and
Yes.
find books. Now you can just join, was it JSTOR or Academia or whatever, these different places. You can download all these books, or you can buy reproductions, and you can get papers from all over the world. I used Academia to download, papers on
I love academia. Yes.
different aspects of the history that I needed to sort of
Yes.
read, and
Thank
it's
you.
so difficult. Like something like the University of Texas or Michigan or whatever, or
Mm-hmm.
say Australia, New Zealand, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
How would I get access to that before the internet? You just wouldn't, would you? You're not going to be able
No.
to. Even
No.
like say, for instance, for me to go to the National Library of Ireland is like about 3.5, 4 hours in car.
Mm-hmm.
You can
Yes.
I've been there in person, and you can get out whatever books. They bring it out on a table, and they give you gloves and everything. You can look through things, but I mean, now you don't even have to do that. You can just download a PDF or they have
Mm-hmm.
screen versions that you can sort of virtually flick through of
Yes.
documents. It's
Yes.
incredible. You can just screenshot it or download the pages that you need.
Mm-hmm.
It revolutionized this whole area. This used to be just available to academics and archaeologists only, but now ordinary people like me
Mm-hmm.
can
Mm-hmm.
go find all this stuff and read the same materials, which is revolutionary. It's like
Mm-hmm.
the best things about the internet is it if you want to educate yourself in whatever way, you've got the tools to do that now, which would have been very expensive or difficult in the
Hmm.
past.
We are in different times, and it's a good
Change.
time to take advantage of that,
Yeah,
because we're also in an age where, some things are being censored. Like, you hit on something that's very substantial. Like I said, there's some history that they just don't want out there.
yeah,
Museums like the Smithsonian have been hiding things forever. They're not the only ones. So
yeah,
when you can find something out, like much like, with Scotia, and write about it, and the information can still be found, that's pretty substantial, because there's a lot out there that you're not going to find. You'll probably never find it. You may speculate, they may find locations, but it doesn't mean anything will come of it. So it was an
yeah.
enjoyable book, and I thank
Great.
you for
Brilliant.
sending it to me, and I'm so thrilled that you were able to join me.
Mm.
Evening for you, afternoon for many of us on this side of the world, and I will actually message you again, because I have perused your site, and I would love to do another show on Druidism and so on, if you would be interested.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've enjoyed the chat, and it's been great. And I really hope that, if there are people involved in academia or archaeology who watch this interview, and any of the other ones, that they will actually seriously consider going and having a look at this place, because ultimately that would be uh, the thing that will prove the story either true or false. And I would love that, to even if it turned out I was wrong, I want to know. I want to know the truth.
Mm-hmm.
If it turned out true, that would be so amazing and really
Well,
over.
there's a monument there. Somebody put it there.
Mm,
This is floating around. People have touched on this a little bit before. So the fact that, you're one more person who's done this research and put it up forward, there's obviously enough out there to
mm,
warrant writing about it. And they're not making it easy to get to her. And there could be a reason for that. There could be several reasons for that. But in the end, I mean, I would want to know. I would be all over it. It's such an important piece of history, not just, for the UK, Ireland and Scotland especially, but for Egyptian history, because she's gone
mm.
missing. And there's a lot of speculation over there. Why would they not want to know where their one of their princesses has gone, just to be able to finally connect that last dot? I would think that would be very
Yeah,
important to both countries.
they are very proud of their history, the
Very
Egyptians.
much.
If it's proved that the Egyptians were able to travel outside of the Pillars of Hercules, past
Yes.
Gibraltar into the Atlantic,
Hmm.
then that would be quite a precedent to be able to prove that once and for all, by finding an actual body of an Egyptian uh, queen, you know.
That was there
Should be
before.
should be very,
Yeah.
very pleased to find out that's if the
Yes.
story is true.
Yes. I
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with you. So thank you so much, Luke, for joining me. I will email you, because I would like to be able to bring you back on again, and tackle some of the other stuff you write about. Guys, check out the website. It's there. It's in the stream. I've had it up. You'll find it in the show description, and we will make sure that Luke joins us again. So thank you so much, so much,
Keep
and I hope we have a great evening. Hey,
them
thank
up.
you. Well, everyone, we've come to the end of another incredible segment. Big thank you, of course, to Luke Eastwood for this. It's a brilliant book. Brilliant book. If you haven't got it and you're thinking about it, please do. It's just so, so filled with information. This week, guys, tomorrow night we've got open mic guest host Wayne Mallows on mysterious places of intrigue. So that will be fun. We have Preston Dennett coming on Thursday night, and we're going to be talking about UFOs over Antarctica. Yes, Antarctica. Everybody's like real curious about this place right now. So lots coming out of there. Preston's very, very well researched and definitely the guy that you want to hear about when it comes to this stuff. Next week on Beyond the Outer Realm is Simon Bone, also from the UK. His book, Verified Near-Death Experiences, Proof of an Afterlife. He does past life regressions, does all kinds of amazing things. So you know it's going to be an interesting conversation as well. So thank you, everyone. You've been tuning into Beyond the Outer Realm on United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 from the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM from New Orleans. Thank you so very much. And thank you to all the new faces. And thank you to all of you who subscribed. Much love and appreciation to you all. And we hope that you will keep joining us in chat every week and catch the other shows as well. So thank you, everyone. And good night, good afternoon, wherever you may be.